Good evening. Thank you so much. It was a wonderful evening for me, and I don't want to make it like a talk. This morning I got up very early, and it was very rare to see the Bangalore roads quite empty. And as I was coming down, there was a cat that passed by. And this cat went to a corner and sat down. And then I remembered a story. Once there was a mother cat, and this mother cat had just delivered 3 little kittens. And these 3 kittens, they were suckling at the mother. A lot of enthusiasm. And she was so happy. She was so content. There was that lovely look on her face that, I'm very happy. When she looked towards the door, and there she saw a dog, and his mouth was watering, especially when he saw the 3 little kittens. And now she was occupied. What would she do? She did "Boo!" And the dog ran away. And for the first time, the 3 kittens looked up at their mother, and she said, "It's always good to know a second language." So I realized that long time ago, not too long ago, when I was a teacher and a librarian, and I was fed up of doing the same kind of stories, lessons, not stories, but lessons. And the children were all bored. I was wondering, what should I do to make, to transform, to connect, to collaborate with these children, to communicate more effectively? What do I do? There should be something different, not a cut and paste job, not taking something from here and saying, okay, let's leverage this, but to do something very different. Where would I get the inspiration from? Who's going to inspire me? Because nobody had then heard of storytelling as a medium. People told stories, but it was more for entertainment. So I was walking, and there was a conference just like this for 3 days in that school. And as I was walking, there was a lot of grass. And I saw a tiny pair of eyes looking at me. And he had like a sticky kind of sticks. And he looked just like the grass. And thank God I saw his eyes. And I was about to stamp, and I said, no. I was late for the conference. And I saw him, he was watching the butterflies. He seemed to be watching a lot of things. And for the first time, I watched him. And I listened. That's it. That's it. But he was not hopping. Don't grasshoppers hop? Oh, I don't know. I don't know much about grasshoppers, I thought. I went for the conference. And that night I had to stay in that school. It was a beautiful night. Star-studded. Lovely. And then, as I came outside my room, I saw something glowing. The moon's reflection, and the same 2 eyes. And the eyes, those eyes were looking at something in the sky. It was a star, not moving, trying to connect, trying to say something. And I found that the same kind of sound, but it was just moving, trying. And all I heard that night as I went to sleep was probably Poochie, that's what I called him, was trying to connect. What was he trying to connect with a star? I don't know. Went to sleep again. The next day conference, I was in a hurry. I started walking. And as I walked and I saw him. I saw him in the grass in the same place. And there was a boy who came and pachak! Oops. Sat on Poochie. Now Poochie was another one. Trying to spread and pull his legs out. But he just moved. And then there was a girl who was skipping and he was watching. And he watched the butterflies and I went for my conference again. And that night, the same glow, the same beauty, and now Poochie, there was a slightly different sound. Because now he was trying to jump. He was actually trying to jump. And he was looking at that star and trying to jump again. Yes. I think something's inspired him. He can. I'm sure he'll do it. There's just one more day left. I hope he can hop. That's what I felt in my mind. I went to sleep again. And the next day, again as I was going, and the same boy, he didn't see Poochie. And he came, and I was about to stop him and he said, no, don't sit on, he's there. But Poochie just hopped. And he went on to a branch. So, he saved himself. But then I saw a new look in his eyes. Because now he saw the butterflies from above. He saw the grass from above. And that night, I saw him looking at the star very differently, that I've come closer to you now. So perhaps that was my inspiration. I said, maybe he wanted to reach for the stars, but at least he reached the trees. And maybe you want to reach somewhere, but you'll have to gather yourself. You have to do it. You have to know what your potential is. And that, I thought, was the beginning for me to start and see if I can build a new bridge called storytelling, which would require me to strengthen my hind legs, to strengthen myself, to find my potential on how I could connect, collaborate, and probably relate to what people are saying. This was a great inspiration. I had to innovate a new idea. I had to inspire people, and that was my goal, because I saw that as I was leaving, lot of Poochies were all flying around. So not only did he learn to fly himself, but I'm sure he taught all the other grasshoppers also to hop. And I began as a storyteller, and I told a lot of stories. Stories for entertainment. Stories because I knew what was politically behind the stories. For instance, I wondered, why in the thirsty crow, the crow was black? Even parrots feel thirsty. Even kingfishers feel thirsty. You know why? I found out. Because Aesop was a black slave. And he being a black slave, he was always chained. He was put on a cliff. And there was a sadist, a minister, who would not allow the water to come up from that old well. Every time the water came up and the slaves were thirsting for it, he would drop that bucket. Now the king didn't know that. Nobody could directly complain to the king because the king would then just cut the head off. So how can a slave who's chained think of conveying this to the king? The king came just for 5 minutes. His round was only for 5 minutes. So now, he created that story. Once upon a time, there was a crow who was very thirsty. But that was not enough because it had to grab the king's attention. And he was so thirsty that he went looking for water. And then he found a pot of water and then he took the stone and put them. And the water came bloop, 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 bloop. The crow drank the water and flew away happily. The king stopped, listened, was intelligent, and left. The second day, he had just 5 minutes again. And you know what? The minister wouldn't give the food to. So what did he do? He created him as a fox. And he told the story of the fox and the crow. And then, the third day, the king was made the lion. Once upon a time, there was a lion. And there was a mouse which was playing and caught the mouse. I'm going to kill you.
No, please don't kill me. I'll help you, I'm sure of it,
said the mouse. He ran away. And another day, the lion, help! Help! And the mouse came running.
Wait, if you shout, I can't help. Just move back.
Because the lion was caught in the net. Every day, when the king heard the story, he knew there was something not right. So he went and he asked Aesop, what do you want? And he said, I want freedom from all the slaves. He didn't ask freedom just for himself, but for everyone. So ironically, if you look down, if you trace the history, all stories that were created just to suit that particular situation because of a political and an economic need became children's stories. But it was created out of a political background. And I went, researched, found the stories, started a training academy. But there was something that was still part of me which was not allowing me to let go. And that's when I went to Scotland. And I met a beautiful person called Linda. And she said, why don't you come? And I went near a beautiful lake, very beautiful. It was very quiet. And there was just this one swan that was floating. The lovely sky. It was almost evening when I was walking towards that wood and towards that lake. And the sunset had made designs. The clouds had scattered. It was a blue sky. And she said, do you have swans like that in India? I said, no, because it was a huge trumpetier swan. And she said, can you see there? There's a login, there's a cabin. I said, yes. Well, let me tell you. There was a woodcutter who stayed in that cabin.
And he had a very ugly face. And he had a hunchback. And when he walked, he didn't walk too well because he had his hunch. And his teeth would just show out. So when he walked and went, people said, "Hey, look at that ugly man."
But they needed him. You know why? Because he always carried the wood. He would come out and cut the wood. And then he would take the wood in the barrel and he would go. And then he would sell the wood because people needed firewood. When he came back, he was mute. He couldn't speak. But he could only listen. His only consolation was a storyteller who kept singing in the woods. Rest for a while now, the night is young. Time is short and the road is long. Tell me a story and I'll sing you a song. For tomorrow the road will be calling us on. Rest for a while now. The night is young. And as he listened, he went back into the woods. And there, the squirrel would come and sit on his lap. And there would be a robin on his hat. And then there was a beautiful deer who would gently rub herself against him. He left all of them and he would go and settle on a wood, on a log, because he would watch this one swan. And this one swan who kept going. The closer he went, the farther the swan went. And she had an attitude. She wouldn't look at him. And as he went closer, she would move away. He wondered. He gave her some breadcrumbs, but she wouldn't come. And then next day again, he would go into the market. People would tease him. He would return. The birds, the animals, the deer, even the owl would say, "Hi, how are you?" But the swan, she just turned away. She wouldn't come. And all that was consoling for him was, rest for a while now, the night is young. Time is short and the road is long. Tell me a story and I'll sing you a song. For tomorrow the road will be calling us on. And one day, the hunchback, he didn't get out of that cabin. And he was lying on his back because he couldn't lie this way. And he didn't open the door because he was coughing. He was very sick. There was just one window. And the robin went up to that window and said, "He's still sleeping, he's not well." And it echoed through the woods. And everyone said, "He's not well, he's not well, he's not well." And then they all got together and said, "We should do something about it." The wise owl said, "Who can give me a solution? We all may be enemies, but let's unite to save our friend." And so the swallow said, "Oh, I I can go and tell the swan what he's feeling because it's all because of that swan. And they all agreed. And the swallow went, and nobody knew that the swan was also mute. And so the swallow went and suddenly, as everybody was watching, they watched the swan turn. And they watched her coming towards the shore. And she was growing bigger and bigger. And she came towards the shore. And then they saw. And she walked. And then with a beak, opened the door of the cabin. Then she walked up. And she saw the hunchback on his back. She put her beautiful long neck around his neck. And he turned because his hunch was getting all right. And he turned and looked into her eyes. And a feather fell on his chest. And the robin was reporting because the door was shut. He's looking at her. She's looking at him. And the feather, it's on his chest. And the feather, and the feathers, and the feathers, and the feathers. And the robin stopped because the feathers had started growing. They were growing. And they were growing. And he was growing feathers. He was growing a beak. And he was growing a little tail too. And the next thing we all know is that he had become a swan. And now the two swans, one after the other, came out of that door. And all the birds and animals watched the two swans get into that water and splash and wade and move into the water. The second swan turned a little when he heard, "Rest for a while now, the night is young, time is short, and the road is long. Tell me a story, and I'll sing you a song. For tomorrow the road will be calling us all. Tomorrow the road will be calling us all." And Linda said, "Well, Geetha, what do you think? It needs you to transform. And while you are getting transformed, you need to transform other people too. Only a transformation, complete transformation, can help you to be a great storyteller." And I took a very powerful message back with me, saying that if there's anything from the past, anything known, anything that we connect to, because our library is so full here, that we need to let go. We need to take it all and find new ways. It has to be completely new. And that's when I started an International Academy of Storytelling in India, which is the only globally recognized academy for storytelling in the world. So, stories need a lot of things. So, Here it is. So you can name it. I have given 2 names, imagine, interact, and tangible outcome that you can get out of stories is look at stories from a different perspective, adapt them to suit their needs. It's such a flexible tool. It's beautiful. Don't give up. The grasshopper Poochie is a leader who never gave up. Develop self and others. I use this for behavioral traits for corporate. I use a lot of corporate modules to do storytelling. Innovate, find new solutions to ideas. Poochie, grasshopper, he was not reactive, but he responded to the need. So it takes away all your bad baggages. You don't have to spend time on negativity. Sense of wonder and delight. You cannot have that if you're not childlike, if you're not humble, and if you're too full of information. Poochie was able to connect, communicate, and collaborate. End of the day, this is what we're trying to do. How are we presenting ourselves and marketing ourselves? Stories are about enabling. There's a new post called Enabler today. So, and there's also a new post in the US, which is CSOs, the Chief Story Officers, which is today a need, and they are recruited. It's about finding your strength. I think this is so essential because we always emote. It's nice for a story. But I think we need to also find out who you are and what is your strength. I realized my strength was more in training and not as an entertainer of storytelling. It's about wisdom and application of common sense. Yes. So like the cat, which thought of how to survive at that particular moment. It's also about your presentation skills, voice, attitude, aptitude, body language that plays like a recipe in bringing about this communication skill that we all need to adhere to. It's about spontaneity and association. Frankly, I was not very sure. I had a lot of stories in my head, but I just thought I'll bring these 3 stories together for you this evening. And for me, the universe is made up of stories and probably atoms. Yes? Thank you very much. So when I look around, I smell, I think, I color, I feel, and I want stories. So when my whole being is that, whomever I come in touch with become stories. I look at them as stories, and they take away that little bit away, which I think is beautiful in a world. We need this new change. We need this new era. There might be a lot of things that is information gathering age, but we also need to be storytellers. You've been wonderful listeners because storytelling is a shared process. Without a listener, there cannot be a storyteller. So since you've been wonderful listeners, I could tell my stories. And so I have to thank you all from the bottom of my heart. I have to thank Lord, the iMedia Summit, for inviting me because they could think of a new way of beginning this beautiful conference along this lovely, lovely sea, the Arabian Sea. I saw the 3 colors today. It's absolutely a wonderful place to delve and to deepen our strengths, our bonds, and our communication. Thank you very much.
La paulite, caco. Paulite, caco y copio. Copio.
Any questions to Ms. Ramanujam? We could take a few questions if there are any.
There are two ways why there are no questions. Either you didn't like it at all, or you're too mesmerized. So I'm going to think positively. Okay, thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Thanks
Looking
a
at
lot.
all of them spellbound and silent, I would definitely go with the latter. That would be the second one. So thank you so much, Ms.
Thank you very
Ramanujam.
much.
Thank you so
And
much.
love to connect with all of you soon. Thank you.